I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the tragic murder of Keith Caneiro and his entire family. Shot and killed, the children stabbed, and prosecutors say it was Keith's own brother who did it. Here's the story. In the early morning darkness of November 20th, 2018, a multi-million-dollar New Jersey mansion stood quietly in horse country in Colts Neck until it erupted in flames and horror. Inside were the charred bodies of Keith Caneiro, his wife Jennifer Caneiro, and their two young children found dead after the fire consumed their home. Authorities say Keith was shot outside the house, his wife shot and stabbed inside the home, and their children brutally stabbed and murdered, all before any flames touched wood. Prosecutors say hours earlier, his brother Paul Caneiro allegedly set fire to his own home in a nearby town. A rushed blaze, prosecutors argue, was a ruse to mask the real atrocity. Today, Caneiro back in court facing first-degree murder, aggravated arson, and weapons charges, while a peaceful community struggles to grasp how greed and betrayal allegedly extinguished a whole family. And a big question from the beginning of this case, the beginning of the story, is what exactly was going on between Keith and Paul? We know they were business partners in two businesses, one of them really successful, the other one successful as well. What was going on that would cause friction between these two? Well, inside the courtroom, they played a couple of phone calls, and these phone calls really tell a story. These are two calls the day before the murders. It's about 12 hours or so. Keith Caneiro, in his sprawling mansion, has surveillance video inside, and he was on the phone talking to his brother Paul. So you hear Keith Caneiro talking to his brother, so you'll hear one side of the conversation from these two phone calls. And what are they talking about? They're talking about Keith's trust fund account, which his brother Paul, he put in charge of this trust fund because he couldn't touch it because it was set up as a trust. So his brother Paul was in charge of it and was supposed to be making certain insurance payments quarterly, and Keith was having a bunch of money dumped into this account. And all of a sudden, the insurance payments weren't being made, and Keith was trying to figure out why. And Paul had allegedly forged bank statements that he gave to Keith and the accountant. So Keith and the accountant are looking at the bank statements and say, look, it looks like we paid for the insurance payments, and these are massive insurance payments. And the insurance company's like, no, we didn't get any money. So now Keith is on the phone with his brother Paul because he wants to figure out what's going on inside of this account. So let's take a listen to the phone calls. There are two of them, again, 12 hours before the murders.
Canada Life is telling me they haven't been receiving money except in April. That doesn't make any sense. Canada Life is saying they haven't received money since April. I know it's not true. I need you to send me the statement they sent because I'm on the phone all day already. I need to access the money. Do you have it scanned in there? Can I log into it and grab it? Do you have the online access? I'll just go online and see it. You don't have the online access? If you could just see a way to send me the password, I'll do the research myself. Thanks.
Hey, Sue, how are you? Sorry to call on the house line. I'm looking for Paul. I know he's sleeping, but I need to talk to him. Yeah, that's fine. Thanks. Hey. I just spent the last hour and a half on the phone with the insurance company. They're saying they haven't received any money, and that they took a loan against my account, and they're taking another one in October, which is just in October. I need to know, show me where you're sending the checks in online. You're writing them out online. I need to know where they're going. I need you to wake up, Paul, and do it. Short of you being dead, I need to see the stuff. Do you need to log into your account then? Do you log into the TV account? Give me the log into the TV account. Your TV account, you don't know your TV login. Go find it and give it to me. I need to see it now, Paul. I need to see it. I need to see it now. I need it. I understand, Paul. I understand that. I just spent half the day. Paul, I'm telling you, I need it. I need it. I need it. Give me the login, Paul. Give me the login, Paul. Paul, just give me the login so I can see where the money went. Then get on your computer and tell me where the money went. Paul, somebody else could read it to you there. I need to know where that money went. What's a little while, Paul? I understand you're saying you need to wake the up, Paul. I'll come, Paul, I'm telling you. I just spent half the day looking at this. I need to know where it went. Paul. Paul. Are you sure it went to the right place this time? You have cash checks? You have cash checks? Paul. I hear what you're saying. Paul, I'm worried. I need to know where it went. All right, an hour or two. An hour or two. An hour or two, Paul, by 8 o'clock.
Keith is upset. He needs that login information. His brother's not giving it to him. Why wouldn't he give it to him, right? That's what Keith, give me the login. You have till 8 o'clock. They never spoke again. This brings us to the first question in our investigation. What do the calls the day before the murders reveal? Joining me, two New Jersey criminal defense attorneys, both are former prosecutors. We've got Al Wunsch III and David Bruno. Great to have you both here. Al, I'll start with you. What are these calls revealing?
They reveal motive. They reveal that Paul was hiding by taking money. And even though they're saying it was $77,000, that's no big deal. There's a violation of the trust. There's a violation of his brother's dependence on him doing his job. With regards to this insurance policy, there's a chance the policy could lapse, and his brother is upset. And this is probably indicative of other problems that have been going on with regards to the honesty and or dishonesty of Paul, and it shows the motive. This man was now humiliated by his brother. His goose is cooked, the jig is up, and now he's known for being, stealing this and putting his brother into a very, very precarious position. And that shows motive.
David Bruno, looking at this, the timing of it as well. I mean, this is the last time they speak, unless there were words exchanged at the time of the murder, if Paul is responsible for it. It's not clear if there was. But what do these calls reveal to you?
I agree with Al. Murder a motive. But guess what? It's also critical for the prosecutor to defend against this third-party liability, right? Because the defense opened that there's somebody else responsible. It could be the third brother, you know? And what this does is just, it frames from a timing perspective this problem that the defendant had. And then you just couple it with the other forensics, the surveillance video at the defendant's house shortly before that fire, and it really just ties it all together. And I believe that prosecutor's opening statement was fabulous, Vinny, because it laid out all of the state's proofs and it left to the very end this last piece to really just sew it all together for prosecutors. And prosecutors don't have to prove motive. It is not an element in New Jersey statutes for murder. It is not, but it is very important when prosecutors do have it to explain sort of like the unexplainable as to how someone would kill the brother and his family in such a brutal way. Final point, sounds a lot like Murdoch.
Yeah, it does, right? Al, you know, I'm looking at this and I'm listening to the tone of Keith, and obviously he's angry, but he's frustrated. But I don't hear the kind of anger like, I'm never going to talk to you again, Paulie. He's almost, and all this is taking place after he already caught him once doing something wrong with the account. And he said, oh, it was a mistake, I'm sorry, I'll pay you back, whatever. And then he starts doing these fraudulent statements. But in the end, it doesn't seem to me that Keith is at the point where he is ready to write his brother off. Like, you're not a brother to me anymore. This is just, he is anxious. He's trying to figure out, because he spent the whole day trying to uncover where these thousands and thousands of dollars of payments for this huge whole life insurance policy went.
Well, you know, he's definitely sounding frustrated, and he's definitely sounding upset, and he's getting a runaround from his brother. So, I mean, even though he didn't, you know, do the kiss of death or anything along those lines, and didn't send Fredo out to go fishing, he did sound frustrated enough, and it's like, I really want to believe you, but I can't. And I'm sure he was being, you know, spoken to by his wife, who's listening to him screaming like you know, well, I need the effing code. I need it. What do you mean you don't have your TD code? That frustration is showing an element of, I can't trust this guy anymore, and he's put me in a very bad financial position. We know that Paul's situation financially was very, very, you know, delicate, and that if he loses his job and he loses his brother's trust and he loses his brother's support, that lifestyle is going to go right out the window. So the brother is frustrated. The brother is upset. I mean, he has not done anything. He didn't make a threat, but you certainly know he was not going to be treating him the same way after this phone call.
David, what do you think happens if there's no murder the next day? What do you think happens between these two brothers?
You know, that's really up to the victim here. I don't know. I think maybe at the very least a possible fraud allegation, right? And we only have one side of this call, all right? We don't have the defendant's side of the call. We also don't know how this was going through the defendant's mind. And clearly, I mean, to do what he did, allegedly, is he thought everything was going to fall. He thought his life was over. It was catastrophic in his mind, obviously. Whatever was going through his mind, what had to be at like the top level of what he thought was going to be the end of his life.
Yeah, it's so tragic. Again, I don't understand getting all the way to that point of this murder that takes place to get there. But I think prosecutors did a nice job laying out some of this evidence. David Bruno, great to have you on the program. Al's going to stick around. Coming up next, was Paul Caneiro living above his means?
The defendant pointed that loaded handgun at his brother, and he pulled the trigger 6 times. 5 of those shots hit Keith.
Did an affair lead to double murder?
The Commonwealth's Attorney's Office has secured an indictment against Brandon Banfield for the murder of his wife, Christine, and the murder of Mr. Ryan.
Prosecutors allege the defendant planned to run away with the family's au pair, so he killed his wife and another man.
He was there, I'm gonna kill her, I'm gonna kill her.
It's a case of sex, lies, and deadly deception.
The Au Pair Affair murder trial. Live coverage weekday mornings on Court TV.
What this case is not is some made-for-TV movie with plot twists and shocking revelations and surprise endings. Make absolutely no mistake, this is a case about the evidence and where that evidence led and who that evidence led to.
And prosecutors allege it's all about money. It's all about money. And what they're alleging is that Paul Caneiro had some expenses, and some expenses that were expensive. Take a look at this. This is testimony from a forensic accountant. These are some of Paul Caneiro's expenses in 2017, 2018, right around the time of the murders. 3 Porsche leases, payments totaling $65,753. Jewelry from Tiffany, $20,334 that he spent. This is over the course of 2 years, and he is apparently or accused of siphoning and stealing money. But he's spending it like this? Brings us to the next question in our investigation. Was Paul Caneiro living above his means? And does that end up being the motivation behind all of this? Is that he wanted to live a certain life and he couldn't keep up with that life without stealing the money and then perhaps collecting all this insurance and everything else after the fact? Still with me, New Jersey attorney Al Wunsch III, and joining me, senior reporter at NJ.com, closely following this case, Sean P. Sullivan is with us. Great to have you, Sean. Sean, what are your thoughts here? What kind of life was Paul Caneiro living?
I mean, this was certainly a guy who had a taste for the expensive. I mean, these were folks who ran a tech company, let's keep in mind. So, by all appearances, these are guys who should have been driving Porsches and living in big houses. But, the case that prosecutors have laid out, on top of what is, a very sinister, murder plot are some, fairly bumbling financial crimes, according to these allegations. The idea being that he was siphoning this money to fund, you mentioned the Porsches, but also maybe an Audi for a mistress, another romantic entanglement that's costing him a lot of money. And so there's pressure, I think, coming on him from a lot of different directions at a time that he is collecting disability. And so it's still kind of unclear even, how active he was working at this time and where all of these income streams are coming from.
Yeah, Al, we've heard that he was on collecting disability, so they sort of funneled the money from the companies to his wife, but Keith was going to wind down those companies apparently because of things that were changing in the business. What are your thoughts about these expenses, including, a kept woman? If he has a kept woman, if he's got a mistress that he's paying for as well, on top of everything else, it becomes very expensive.
It becomes very expensive, but it's not just money, in my opinion. There's also a resentment. There's also some jealousy. Okay, there's just also a flawed individual that is, at work here. I mean, the money is certainly part of it. And even though $77,000, the defense makes that sound like that's not a lot of money, it was going to at least get him past some payments that were due and things along those lines. But it's more than money in this case. There's definitely something there with regards to a resentment of his brother and his brother's success. All you have to take a look is at that sprawling estate in Coates Neck that his brother had. This incredible lifestyle his brother had. And everything going forward. And he's the ne'er-do-well. He's doing okay. Okay, but he's not at that level. And it has to hurt him to see that his brother, who he works for conceivably, even though they're partners, he's basically working for the brother. That's a resentment that just makes him seethe and makes him upset and hates everything about what his brother is. And now his brother's calling him a crook, calling him a thief. He's accusing him of taking money that was his brother's and using it for whatever purpose. And he's not coming clean on any of this. So the money is a motive, but there's more deep-seated resentment here than just the dollar signs.
And Sean, something else that the prosecutor spoke about, which was the future of the companies, and that Keith's plan would have put Paul in a very difficult position to live up to this lifestyle that he was living.
Yeah, from the court record, it seems like Keith wanted out of the company, that he was under a lot of stress and didn't seem to think it was worth it anymore. And, Paul, if these, if the company wound down, if the company got sold, a lot of these alleged financial improprieties would probably have come to light. And so, the case the prosecutors are making here is that Paul was essentially cornered, that this was, not a lot of money. We're talking about $78,000 or so, but, that this was kind of the writing was on the wall for him, and he needed to act.
Yeah, and Al, if he's on disability and he gets a job or attempts to get a job, then all of a sudden he's not on disability. That puts it in a strange place. And apparently, while he's getting his disability payments, the money was flowing to his wife, so to sort of prop up his brother's life. But if the companies are gone, that money going to the wife, that disappears.
Yep, that's true. And it puts him in an even worse financial situation. It'll put him in a position where there is absolutely no ability to secure the funds necessary to keep that lifestyle going and to keep that, mistress in a car and maybe an apartment and the high-class meals and things along like that. I mean, $20,000 in jewelry is not particularly a lot, but it is a lot if it's going to the mistress as opposed to the wife. And then that means she's going to be expecting more. So it's a very, very tricky situation that he's in. That company goes down, he goes down. And there's no way for him to be able to bounce back within a short period of time based on his lifestyle, okay, and his need for funds.
All right. Al Wunsch, great to see you. Thanks so much for your help tonight. Sean's going to stick around. Still to come, is the other brother, Corey, reasonable doubt? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the murders of Keith Caneiro, his wife, and his children, a family executed inside their sprawling New Jersey mansion. And the man prosecutors say was responsible, his own brother, Paul Caneiro. Here's the story. It began with money, resentment, and a widening fracture between brothers Paul Caneiro and Keith Caneiro, men who once shared both blood and business. On a cold November morning in Colts Neck, New Jersey, any hope of reconciliation vanished. Keith Caneiro was found dead on his front lawn, shot before flames swallowed his sprawling mansion. Inside, the tragedy deepened. Police say Jennifer Caneiro was killed next, along with their children, Jesse and Sophia. Investigators believe they were stabbed before the mansion burned, their final moments stolen in silence. Hours earlier, prosecutors say Paul Caneiro lit his own house on fire across town in Ocean Township, a staged distraction meant to blur the motive and the timeline. Now, Paul Caneiro faces murder and aggravated arson charges in the biggest criminal trial in New Jersey in years. Before the trial started, we understood to a certain extent what the prosecution case was, what their theory was. What we didn't necessarily understand is exactly what the defense was going to be. And then we heard this. Take a listen.
He did not commit these crimes. He did not hurt anyone. He did not harm anyone. He did not set any house on fire. And he certainly did not brutally murder the family members that you will hear he loved and cherished and adored so much. Corey Caneiro was on the outside of that. He wasn't a part of that. He wasn't a part of the businesses, and he wasn't a part of that close relationship. He was on the outside. They never investigated Corey. They never looked into Corey. They never did a single thing to investigate Corey, not a single thing. They searched Paul's house, and they searched Keith's house. They never searched Corey's house. They searched Paul's phone and his electronic devices, and Keith's. They never searched Corey's. They got surveillance video from the area of Paul's house, the same way they did for Keith. They never did that for Corey. And they took and they tested Paul's DNA the same way they did Keith, Jennifer, Sophia, and Jesse's. But they never even bothered to get Corey Caneiro's DNA. I ask that you pay close attention to the incredible lack of investigation that was done in this case, especially as it relates to Corey Caneiro. They want you to follow the evidence. They want you to follow the money. Well, so do we. Because when it comes to the $3 million that was at stake, what you'll learn is it doesn't lead you to Paul. It leads you directly to Corey.
They're going after Corey, the third brother. And that brings us to the next question in our investigation. Is the other brother, Corey, reasonable doubt? Is there anything to this? Joining me, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor David Gelman, and still with us, senior reporter at NJ.com, Sean P. Sullivan. Sean, what, if anything, do we know about Corey Caneiro?
Corey was the younger brother of Keith and Paul, and by all accounts, a little bit less connected to the family business. Less of a close relationship. Paul and Keith were described as kind of like inseparable best friends. And Corey lived a little bit further away. So he had certain financial entanglements here, and the defense here made a lot of hay of the fact that Corey Caneiro stand to gain almost as much financially from the death of Keith Caneiro that Paul did. So they're certainly laying a foundation here in jurors' mind of doubt. Pointing to basically the lack of investigatory steps that police took here. If it was true that Paul that Keith had this life insurance policy that was going to pay out to certain beneficiaries, and another brother was one of those beneficiaries, why not just for due diligence would police not run that to ground? I think that's a question that's worth asking. Whether it's going to overcome the forensic evidence that we see in this case, I think is going to be a difficult sell.
All right, David Gelman, the other brother, Corey. Is that the reasonable doubt?
Look, when you have nothing, Vinny, you better just throw it against the wall. So yeah, look, this brother, obviously, he didn't really, he's not the best brother in the world, I would say. So I would say, yeah, look, you have to go against him. You have to throw anything you can against the wall to make it reasonable doubt. Frankly, why don't you say Bob Jones down the street? Why don't you say he wasn't investigated? They don't have a lot. And the DNA here is very, very strong against Keith in this matter, as we're well aware, and along with the other issues that they have. But also, Keith was integrated in the business. Corey was not. So therein lies, in my opinion, that the reasonable doubt there is not going to really be sufficient. But again, the defense doesn't have a ton to go on, so they got to go somewhere.
David, do you expect either side to call Corey Caneiro as a witness, whether it's the prosecution or defense?
It's a good question. I think he's on the witness list for both parties. I would highly doubt, though, that the prosecution, they would have to do it for the simple reason that they have their case pretty stocked up, all right? They have everything. It's been going on for a couple of years now, so they have it all done. The defense, on the other hand, they may have to call him, because if this is what their defense is going to be, they're trying to get the reasonable doubt. They're going to have no choice but to call him as a witness.
Sean, has Corey spoken like this? To me, this is so incredibly tragic. It's like it's a family is just like gone. One whole family is wiped out. Obviously, Paul has been accused of doing it. He's got his wife, his daughters. Has Corey been public at all about all of this that has happened with his two brothers?
No, the Caneiro family has been very private throughout this whole ordeal. Paul's wife and daughters have been seen in and out in the courtroom, but not very often. So I'd be surprised if not compelled to testify, that Corey Caneiro would be anywhere near the courtroom. This is, a family trauma, and you have to kind of imagine, if the prosecutors have this one, if they have the case that they say they have here, and you're Corey Caneiro, what is going through your mind as you've suffered this unspeakable tragedy, and then you are sort of implicated in a way that's just mostly suggestion. I mean, we're not seeing any defense investigation here. They have obviously have no obligation to go reinvestigate the case. But I've covered wrongful conviction cases, and that post conviction, those guys have to go resolve the crime, find the guy who did it, and basically come to the court and say, okay, we solved the crime. That's not what you're getting here. What you're getting here is very good defense attorneys asking legitimate questions about the investigation that went on here, just trying to raise any doubt in a juror's mind.
Yeah, I guess it's almost the classic, David, rush to judgment. You focused on one person, you didn't look anywhere else. But like the one person, I mean, the timeline and the DNA and the phone call the day before, it all ties to this one person. This other thing seems to be out of left field. But it does get to a point, right? Like, jurors these days, I think, are much more skeptical and critical of investigations. We saw it play out in an exaggerated way in the Karen Reed trial. But do you think that's a potential danger here, that, hey, well, maybe he didn't do it, but they didn't even look. So maybe there is some doubt that I might have.
Vinny, you raise a really good point here. And yes, jurors are skeptical nowadays. Look, you got a lot of high-profile cases, thanks to Court TV, obviously. So I think jurors, it could be in the back of their minds, but there has to be just something else besides, oh, well, you didn't investigate my other brother. You have to have other things besides that. And the DNA here, the electronics, the fire, all these things, they lead to Keith. They don't lead to Corey. And unless you have something else other than just saying, hey, we've got to look at my brother, I think it's the reasonable doubt is not even going to be a reasonable doubt.
Yeah. And Sean, our understanding is this trial is going to take some time. This is not going to be, we cover trials all over the country here on Court TV. Some murder trials in some states take 3 days, 4 days. Some of them take 4 months. This one, we still got a way to go, don't we?
This is a murder trial that will not go away. I mean, it took 7 years just to bring it to trial, just a mountain of appeals and delays in the judiciary. And so this is going to take at least 2 months, I think is what the judge said. I would not be surprised at all if it took longer than that. We're going to, already we're hearing from a lot of, detailed testimony about the financial crimes here. The witness list is fairly long. I think it's going to be the prosecutors are going to be painstakingly buttoning up this case after having taken 7 years to bring it to trial.
All right, Sean Sullivan over at NJ.com. I read it all the time, even though I moved from New Jersey down to Georgia. I get all my Jersey news from NJ.com. David Gelman, Gelman Law, great to see you as well. Coming up next, what do the murders of the children reveal?
When he arrived, he turned off the generator to their home, and then he cut the power to the house.
What are you reporting?
Fire. The tragic murder of Keith Caneiro and his entire family.
The defendant repeatedly shot and killed his brother and then moved to murder the rest of the family inside the home.
Their sprawling mansion set on fire.
Paul and Keith were not only brothers but business partners.
This one is the most brutal case that I've seen in my experience here.
The Mansion Murders Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
This one is the most brutal case that I've seen in my experience here. And I know that the entire team of investigators and people involved in working on this case, the fire officials, that they've struggled with this too.
Brutal is so true here when you think about what happened to Keith Caneiro and his family. Like, he's shot and killed, his wife is shot and stabbed, and then there are the two children, the young children, who are stabbed to death. And then we learned a little more about what happened to the children during the prosecutor in her opening statement, describing the injuries and what the jury's going to hear. Take a listen.
He stabbed his nephew Jesse multiple times in his upper body and threw his arm into his chest. And he stabbed his niece Sophia 17 times over her entire 45-pound body, including deep stab wounds in her face and the top of her head. And when he was all finished, he went into the basement, inside of the cedar closet, where he started a fire. It was a slow-burning fire that smoked and smoldered for hours before anyone was alerted to it. He cut the Verizon fiber optic line in the basement that fed into the optical network terminal, and then he left. What you're going to learn is that while their parents, Keith and Jennifer, were both deceased at the time the defendant set fire to their home, both having sustained fatal gunshot wounds to the head, those children were still alive. The medical examiners are going to tell you that the children's autopsies revealed that in addition to being stabbed repeatedly, they also exhibited signs of smoke inhalation. And so the evidence will show that Jesse and Sophia were still alive and breathing after their uncle repeatedly stabbed them. Still alive and breathing after their uncle set fire to their home and left them. Still alive and breathing as the smoke began to rise from the basement. And that, you will learn, is how those two children spent the final moments of their lives. Bleeding to death and inhaling smoke.
This is tough. This is tough. Brings us to the final question in our investigation this hour. What do the murders of the children reveal? And I want to look at that from two different perspectives. Joining me, New Jersey trial attorney Crystal Pettiford is with us, and board-certified forensic pathologist and medical examiner, Dr. Jan Gorniak. Dr. Gorniak, I want to begin with you because I want to get this perspective. What did those children go through? How did those children suffer? And what does it tell you that they were breathing in the smoke after being stabbed?
Good evening, Vinnie. Thanks for having me. Yes, this is horrific. Of all the cases I do, stab wounds are the worst, and then add that to children being stabbed multiple times. So when somebody is stabbed, you're not going to die instantaneously. What's going to happen, internal organs are going to start to bleed. Little Sophia was stabbed over 17 times. So it seems like her heart was punctured, her lungs were punctured. So she's going to have internal bleeding. So, and then with Jesse, same thing. Vital organs are going to start to bleed. You're not going to die right away. People, when they quote unquote bleed out, they go into what we call, hypovolemic shock. So you're losing your blood, but you're still not dead compared to the mom and dad who were shot in the head. So these children are going to bleed out and they're going to go into shock. Once again, not dead. They become unconscious first, and then they become unresponsive. So then they're not, reacting to any outside stimuli. They're still breathing. Are they breathing adequately? No. So at the time of autopsy, what we can see is soot in the airway, but the main thing we do is toxicology that we can tell that somebody was breathing at the time of in a house fire is the carbon monoxide level in their bodies. So just to think about even anybody, but especially children fighting, because you're not just going to let someone sit there and stab you. So they're moving around, and then to succumb to, smoke inhalation and dying on the floor like that. It's like you said, it's one of the most difficult cases I probably have ever seen.
Crystal, what do these murders of the children specifically now reveal about this case, and perhaps how this will impact this case?
Obviously, Paul, I think, excuse me, I'm sorry, Vinny. I think any murder is tragic, but for a jury to hear that a child that weighs 45 pounds was stabbed 17 times, and for her brother to be stabbed all throughout his body, that's going to create a really, really, really a huge impact on the jury. They're going to want to know how an uncle, a blood relative, could commit such a heinous crime. It's also going to call into question, why did he even have to attack the children? I would assume possibly they observed what happened to their mother, or heard something or saw something that created a need for him to feel the need to get rid of the children. It's going to be hard for anyone to fathom how you can do something like that to someone you saw since birth.
And Crystal, looking at it also from a motive perspective, if it's about life insurance, at the end of the day, if the children are gone, then the money might flow to the brother rather than to the children.
Yes, based on what the prosecution said in their opening statement, it would have gone to him. He would have stood to be the beneficiary of this very large life insurance policy. So it's always going to feel like he's motivated by the money and that extreme greed at the cost of the children's lives.
And Dr. Gorniak, is there any way to know if the children had some sort of understood what was happening in that moment and are understanding that they're going to die?
That's a great question. Obviously, they were aware that they were being stabbed. Like I said, you're not going to die instantly. So when someone's attacking you with a knife, you're going to instinctively try to fight them off. So they knew they were being injured. Not sure they knew they were going to die, but they knew something horrible was happening to them at the hands of their uncle.
And that's an image that is so disturbing in so many different ways. We only have about 10 seconds left here, Crystal. Do you think this forces Paul Caneiro's hand that I'll have to testify?
I don't think that he will. I think that he should. I think it would be helpful to him if he is in fact innocent to try to put up some sort of explanation to explain to the jury, I would never do this to my niece and nephew. I love them dearly. I love my brother. I love his wife, but those kids are important to me. Yeah. If he's truly innocent, I think it would be to his benefit.
Yeah. We're out of time, unfortunately. Dr. Gorniak and Crystal Pettiford, sorry so much, but we ran out. Thank you. Appreciate your time. Paul Caneiro's life appeared to be in a downward spiral. He was bleeding money, unable to keep up with his lifestyle. Must have been tough, especially with his brother doing so well. Envy and desperation are a difficult combo. The question is, will the jury believe it's a motive for quadruple murder? I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.